So many folks are here, so welcome to everybody. Well, it's at the top of the hour, so I think we will go ahead and get started. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Laila Narsi. I'm one of the coordinators, and I'm also your host and the organizer of this retreat, Laila Narsi from Sugar Land, Texas. I'm also a certified mindful self-compassion teacher. And actually, I've been teaching as long as the program's been around. So I'm really fortunate to do that, and so fortunate to be leading a lot of these circles of practice sessions. You know, as we get closer to the end of the year tomorrow, really wanted to offer a place where we could all come together, practice together in safety, compassion, closing out 2023, and really opening up the new year together. Thank you, Jiva. Yeah, Jiva says, hi from Brighton in England. Thanks for offering this, Laila. Such a great offering. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So as we sit together, this will be a silent retreat. So once we get started with our first speaker, I will ask that, everyone stay in silence. However, at the end of every session and during breaks, you'll have an opportunity to share in the chat box. At the end of the retreat, you'll have a chance to share if you would like. I do ask that we are mindful that there are so many people here from different parts of the world, and really to keep our comments in a compassionate basis. And just know that regardless of our backgrounds, we're here practicing together as one community. So before we go any further, I'd like to start with a very short, soft landing. So if you're not already in a comfortable posture, please getting into a comfortable posture right now. Yeah. All right. So whether you're sitting up, standing, lying down, getting into a posture that feels comfortable for your body. If the breath is a comfortable place for you, let's start by bringing our awareness to the body, breathing itself. Just noticing the flow of the breath. If the body is not a comfortable place, please know that's okay too, and you can connect with your body or the moment through your five senses, or by rocking side to side or rocking forwards and backwards. And that too is another lovely way to really connect in this moment without judgment. If it feels right, you could even put a hand on the heart or any other part of the body. Letting this be a reminder of bringing kindness to this one here. Kindness to the one that matters in this moment. As we begin this retreat for ourselves, let us come up with an intention for the retreat. So taking a moment and noticing, what would be your intention for this retreat? What would you like to receive during today's retreat? Hearing that for yourself. Repeating that softly in your own ear. perhaps even embodying that intention, letting it ripple throughout your body with each breath, each movement. Continuing to land in this moment. And as you do, I'd like to share a poem to start us off. This poem, those of you that have been to my circles of practice have probably heard me say this. It's one of my favorites. It's called Hokusai Says, and it's by Roger Keyes. Hokusai says, look carefully. He says, pay attention, notice. He says, keep looking, stay curious. He says, there is no need, no end to seeing. He says, look forward to getting old. He says, keep changing. You just get more who you really are. He says, get stuck, accept it, repeat. Repeat yourself as long as it's interesting. He says, keep doing what you love. He says, keep praying. He says, every one of us is a child. Every one of us is ancient. Every one of us has a body. He says, every one of us is frightened. He says, every one of us has to find a way to live with fear. He says, every one of us is alive. Shells, buildings, people, fish, mountains, trees, wood is alive. Water is alive. Everything has its own life. Everything lives inside us. He says, live with the world inside you. He says, it doesn't matter if you draw or write. It doesn't matter if you saw wood or catch fish. It doesn't matter if you sit at home and stare out at the ants on your veranda or the shadows of the trees and the grass in your garden. It doesn't matter that you care. It doesn't matter that you feel. It doesn't matter that you notice. It doesn't matter that life lives through you. Contentment is life. Contentment is life living through you. Peace is life living through you. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Look, feel, let life take you by the hand. Let life live through you. Yeah. So with that, once again, I noticed there's so many more people that have joined our retreat. I want to welcome everyone here. And as we get started, I'd like to just remind everyone once again to stay in silence and stay muted until the very end of the retreat. So every hour we will have a new wonderful senior teacher from CMSC. And every hour you will be able to receive a new meditation, so you can stay for that session or you can stay for the whole retreat, whatever feels right. So in just a few minutes, we will have Dr. Kristin Neff. And then the top of the next hour, we will have James Roser. And then the last hour, we will have Dr. Patricia Isis. Each one of them is an experienced, amazing senior teacher. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Kristin Neff. I don't think she needs much introduction. Dr. Neff is the co-founder for Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. She is also the co-developer of the MSC program. She has been teaching MSC and a teacher trainer of intensives, workshops around the world. In fact, Dr. Neff is a pioneer in the field of self-compassion research. Most recently, it came out that she is the person who has researched self-compassion the most around the world. So we are really in for a treat today. Dr. Neff has published widely, has many articles and books. Her most recent book is called Fierce Self-Compassion: How Women Can Harness Kindness to Speak Up, Claim Their Power. In fact, this wonderful book has been turned into a very powerful 8-week course, and it's there for everyone of all genders. I've been really fortunate to be able to teach this course several times already, so I can tell you how powerful it really is. Dr. Neff has also appeared on countless podcasts, so many, places you can catch her, including her website at self-compassion.org. Yeah, so without further ado, I am going to ask Dr. Neff to come on up and get started. And I'm going to just take my face off of here so she can take the floor.
Hi, Laila. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for hosting this event every year. It's just lovely. And I decided I'm going to switch the topic I was talking about, because what I'm being moved by this morning, especially because this is more of a retreat environment. Oh, I haven't noticed I'm very quiet. Let me see if I can turn up my mic. Is that better? Maybe you could just type in the chat. Is that better?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Good enough now? Okay, good. Turn up my volume. So I recently returned from a 3-day / retreat workshop with a dear friend of mine named Carolee Morgan, who's a non-dual meditation teacher. And so I've been playing around with how to approach self-compassion from a non-dual perspective. So I just want to talk a little bit about what that may look like. And then when I lead the meditation today, we can kind of experience how that might change our practice of self-compassion. So some of you may not know what non-duality is, and it's actually quite hard to explain because it points to realms that are difficult to explain with concepts and language. But the basic idea, forgive me if I get this wrong, but the basic idea of non-duality, the reason they call it non-duality and not oneness is because the reality of things is not separate as we think it is in terms of subject and object. We're a separate self. There's the rest of the world. And yet it's not all the same either. We aren't actually one. We're all having individual experiences. So you may think of non-duality as not one and not two, right? That's why they use that kind of clunky language. But this is actually really important when we think about self-compassion, because we can understand that in some ways we are a separate self. Our experience feels separate. We're individuals. What we think about, what we feel, our life experience, how we're shaped by our culture and our history is very unique and individual. And in fact, it's the individual self that suffers, right? Partly because we feel disconnected from the whole, because things are turning out the way we want them to, because we don't always act the way we want to act. We don't have total control. So you might say that the self that's receiving self-compassion is the separate individual self. And by the way, the little workshop I taught with my friend Carolee was titled, Who is the Self in Self-Compassion? So there are actually both types of self and self-compassion. The self that suffers, the self that receives compassion is the part of us that feels separate, disconnected. But we don't want to, sometimes we can see that the separate ego in a pejorative way. It's also beautiful. Richard Schwartz talks about parts. And so in many ways, you can think, who are the selves that receive self-compassion? We have different parts of ourselves. We have different expressions. Each one's precious. Each one's beautiful. But this sense of disconnection and separation also causes a lot of suffering. We don't feel powerful. We feel limited. We're worried about dying. We're worried about not belonging. We're worried about not being good enough. At the same time, this individual self is the one who creates art or puts on meditation retreats like the one Laila's doing, and has children and relationships and all the beautiful parts of being human. But who is the self that gives the compassion? If you think about the part of ourselves from which the self-compassion or compassion for others arises, I like to think of this as, you can call it big self, infinite self. There's so many names that you can point to in internal family systems. Dick Schwartz calls it self with a capital S. In certain spiritual traditions, it might be called our spiritual self, or there's words that higher self. There's so many words that point to the self that's bigger than this small, limited individual self. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to call it infinite self. And without getting too technical here, it's really kind of interesting. I'm sounding a little woo-woo. If you look from a scientific point of view, what we're understanding more and more about consciousness, and some scientists actually think that consciousness and awareness is perhaps the substratum of the universe, out of which matter arises. Again, we don't have to have that debate, but you can think of this from a scientific view of infinite self is the infinite field of possibilities. It doesn't have space and time. And again, we know from a scientific point of view that space and time are perceptions of what you might call the smaller, limited self. So we could go off on a tangent on that. I won't, but just to say, we all have access to this bigger self, this infinite self, in every moment. Right? In every moment, there's the contents of what's arising in our consciousness, which you might think of as individual self, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, especially feelings of inadequacy. And yet there's the ground of being, the awareness that's not separate from the universe, that's not separate from other people. And I think actually what you can think of what's happening in self-compassion is you're switching points of view. You're switching from the sense of being identified with a limited self to kind of resting in this larger spiritual or infinite self, whatever you want to call it, this bigger self, this not suffering, this inherently peaceful, this inherently loving. And this is the wellspring that self-compassion comes from. And this is important because often we think that I can't give myself compassion, or I'm not worthy of compassion, or it's hard to give myself or others compassion. Really? Is it hard for the universe to come up with compassion? Does the universe think that any single part of its manifestation is not worthy of compassion? The universe doesn't work that way. So from this perspective, which I've been playing with, it's more like seeing self-compassion is a matter of just switching points of view, switching between individual self, which again, remember, is still precious and beautiful, to this larger self, which is connected to everything, which is, of course, also precious and beautiful. And I'll just talk a little bit more before I lead the meditation. If you look at my 3-component model of self-compassion, which hopefully most of you are familiar with, it really fits beautifully onto this model. So the 3 components are mindfulness, common humanity, and kindness, and each of them have an opposite: over-identification, isolation, and self-judgment. So starting with mindfulness. So if you think of mindfulness as awareness, right? When we have a moment of mindfulness, when we're aware, oh, I'm hurting, for instance, what has happened is we switched into this big self point of view. We are aware of what's arising. We're no longer identified with the contents. We have the awareness that's kind of bigger than the contents, versus what I called over-identification. That's when our sense of self gets locked in, trapped in, lost in that small sense of self, and in particular emotions or thoughts or sensations that are arising in the moment. If you look at common humanity, some of you may know this. I actually didn't want to call it common humanity. I wanted to call it interbeing because I learned about self-compassion from Thich Nhat Hanh. And the idea of interbeing is pointing directly to this big self, this universal self, this infinite self. So when we're bigger than ourselves versus feeling isolated, which comes from feeling like an individual separate self, and then kindness, we can think of it as love, that the inherently loving quality of big self, spiritual self, universe, versus judgment. And the judgment comes when we feel separate, inadequate, isolated. So I'm really excited about this new way of working with self-compassion because I think it opens up a new way of understanding things that's actually much more profound than this just being a particular psychological practice. And so in the Mindful Self-Compassion program, we teach a meditation called Giving and Receiving Compassion. And I'm going to teach this, or I'm going to lead this practice. I'm not going to teach it. I'm going to lead this practice. Many of you have done it before with a slightly different spin on it. So not only are we giving and receiving compassion, we're also inhabiting this, not one, not two awareness. We can manifest when we receive compassion, we're kind of fully celebrating our beautiful individual selves that also hurt and suffer. And when we send compassion, when we give compassion, we're inhabiting that part of our awareness that's not limited, that infinite self, the bigger self, the spiritual self, the loving self. So I'll lead this practice. It'll take about maybe 20 or 25 minutes. So please close your eyes. So settle into your body, feel your feet on the floor, the weight of your body on your chair. Maybe take a few deep breaths. Okay, so I would invite you to notice right now, where is your sense of self? Right, for most of us, and you might say our everyday mind, it feels like we're a little bubble behind our eyes. It's located in our head. People are different. For most people, this sense of individual self, separate self is right behind our eyes and our head. And so just kind of notice that. Can you feel where your sense of self is? How big is it? Does it have a shape or size or color? Notice that sense of self, of me, that we often carry around with us throughout the day. And then we're going to see if we can maybe expand this smaller sense of self. One way of doing this is see if you can, that little bubble of sensation behind your eyes, see if you can feel that from the inside. So instead of looking at it or observing it, just feel the sensation from the inside. So you're kind of you're locating your center of awareness inside the sensation behind your eyes. And then slowly start dropping down. So maybe notice feeling the center perhaps in your jaw. So just moving it down a little bit. So as if the center of your awareness was inside your jaw. then moving it down to your neck. And so kind of you're relocating your sense of self, the center of your awareness, to inside your neck. And then down into your chest. And centered in your heart center. And so just feeling your center in your heart center. From the inside. Inhabiting your heart center. And then noticing that there aren't really boundaries. It's not like your heart center stops at the skin on your chest, right? This sensation expands in all directions. You can't really feel where it starts and where it ends. So allow your sense of self, again, centered in your heart, but allow it to expand in front of you, behind you, to all sides. So that in fact, you're really just this field of loving awareness. This infinite field of loving awareness. And also begin to notice your breathing. You can feel this breathing within this field of loving awareness. It's just happening on its own. We don't need to control it. And so if you like, you can imagine that as the in-breath arises, the in-breath is arising full of compassion and love. For the experience and manifestation of our individual self. Right, every thought, every emotion, every experience infused with adoration. Recognition of the preciousness of life. Love. Allowing your individual self, your sense of separateness, even perhaps your sense of loneliness, Receive this love. And the truth that we aren't alone, we aren't separate. If thoughts arise or sensations, or you become distracted, recognizing this as the manifestation of the individual self. And perhaps just again infusing that experience with love and wonder. The manifestation of life in the form of thoughts and sensations and emotions, discomfort. And now we're going to switch perspectives if we can and start focusing on that out breath. Again, if it's too uncomfortable to switch the focus on the in breath or out breath, you don't need to, but you can focus more on the out breath. And with the out breath, feeling that sense of expansiveness. Right? The part of our reality that's infinite, that's not bounded, that's not limited. The infinite source of compassion and love and awareness. Feeling the essential peace and well-being. In our infinite self. Allowing yourself simply to rest in this being. From this perspective, there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to do. There's no problem to solve. We simply are. And now, if you like, bringing both together. Right? You may think of the in-breath as representing the individual self, the wave on the ocean. And the out-breath is representing the ocean itself. And the truth is, we are both the wave and the ocean. The wave is the ocean. So letting go of any effort now to focus on anything. And so just being. And in that being, thoughts will arise, emotions will arise. You may feel sensations. Again, these are just the waves on the ocean. Beautiful, precious. And there's this ground of being, which is the ocean itself. This ocean of compassion, which is always here. We just aren't aware of it. It's part of our true nature. So natural that we become identified with thoughts or emotions or distractions. And when that happens, we can just notice it. Breathe in compassion and love for this beautiful expression of individual self. And breathe out into our bigger self, letting go and letting be. Feeling the aliveness of being. This ocean is not empty. It's not blank. It's teeming with life. Constant movement of energy of life arising in the ocean. Right? The constant forming of the individual self from our infinite self, manifesting and changing moment by moment. Perhaps noticing that as the individual self arises, there's a sense of contraction. And as we are just our true selves or our big selves, our spiritual selves, there's a sense of expansion. This contraction and expansion, just like breathing in and breathing out. It's simply life unfolding moment by moment, beautiful, precious, sometimes painful. Knowing when this pain arises, we are not just the pain. We are not just the contraction. We are not just our individual selves, although we forget this. We are also this infinite field of loving awareness. And you can rest in this at any time. It's always here, closer than the eyelash on your face. And now beginning to focus on your breath again. Noticing that as we focus, we contract into a more of a sense of individual self. No problem, beautiful. Feeling the breath moving in and out. Feeling your body. It's here and now. Feeling any body sensations that are arising. Feeling your feet on the floor. The weight of your body on your chair. Feeling yourself reconstitute into your more normal, everyday sense of self. And when you're ready, opening your eyes. Thank you all for joining me on that journey. It's the first time I've ever led the meditation that way. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the ride as well. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. And Laila, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kristin. That was so beautiful. Deepest gratitude for not just today, but all the amazing work and contributions you've made to the field of self-compassion. I'm also, going to put her website in the chat box. If anyone would like to learn anything else about the amazing work that Dr. Neff does, or just read any of her books, you can go there. Thank you so much, Dr. Neff.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we are going to take a few minute silent break. So we will be back in about 7 minutes at the top of the hour. So if you would, you could stay in loving silence and just be in the space you're at, or you can take some time and get some refreshments, run to the restroom, and we will start the next session in just a few minutes at the top of the hour. All right. So welcome back, everyone. We will be starting our second session right now. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and let everyone come back in. Um, hmm. Hello, James. So we are just so fortunate here to have the amazing James Rosser lead our next session. I'm really excited to call James my friend as well as my colleague. James is a licensed clinical social worker, and he's also a trained teacher for the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. James has meditated for over 30 years and graduated from Insight LA's facilitator training program. In fact, James and I were also in Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock's program called Mindful Meditation Teacher Certification Program in the inaugural class.
Yep.
James leads secular as well as Buddhist-based mindfulness trainings. We're really fortunate to have him. He's also really proficient and a leader in affinity groups from the LGBTQI affinity as well as mental health, working also with anti-racism practices for white people. James is a psychotherapist and the director for the outpatient programs for UCLA Resnick in the Neuropsychiatric Hospital. Just really excited to have such a well-trained and inspiring leader right now. So without much ado, James, I'm just going to give the mic to you.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction. And I'm so happy to be here with you as a dear friend and colleague and to be able to offer this. I love this material. This material is a very important part of my life and my practice. And it is just a pleasure to be able to be here and share this with you this morning. So welcome all. So as a way to start and bring us back, I'm going to help us come to a landing with something that you might not consider, which is you have a body. And sometimes we forget. There's a line from James Joyce. He's talking about a character, Mr. Duffy. And he says in his writings, Mr. Duffy lives a short distance from his body. So I certainly understand what that means, and I think a lot of us do, that sometimes we tend to get lost in our heads. And it can happen, especially at times of year that can be a little tricky or trying, and that might be this time of year for you. So I'm going to invite you to sit back and invite some air into your body in whatever way that is most comfortable for you. And you can close your eyes if you'd like. You can keep them open if you'd like to. And just bring attention to the fact that you actually are in a body at this moment. And this is just light awareness. There's no need for any particular goal, any particular sense or feeling in the moment, just what you find. So bringing that awareness to this body, a sense of welcoming and kindness. And as you greet the body, beginning to notice, perhaps from the head moving downward if you'd like, that there are areas in the body that are hard like bone or firm like muscle and organs. Noticing these places in the body just kindly and gently, lightly. Just letting that awareness drift downward through the torso, the legs, coming to the feet. And this is the earth element in the body. The strength the body gives is given from the earth in form and shape. And inviting you to move upward through the body, noticing flow. Flow is blood, fluid, moving through the body. This is the water element in the body. Bringing awareness to it. And without this water element in the body, providing cohesion to the earth element, the body would freeze up, or it would simply go to dust. This water, this cohesion, coming up, feeling it through the organs, the lungs, saliva, moisture in the eyes. And now moving downward once again and noticing temperature, the warmth of the body. Some places warmer, some places cooler. And as you observe through the body, you might find places where there's deep warmth, places where energy is being created in digestion. Also, this sense of energy supports passion. It supports you in feeling that sense of energy down through the feet. And then coming up one last time, and this time, the most ethereal of the elements, wind and air. And this wind and air that comes into the body and propels movement. It allows you to walk and to dance and to hug, to breathe. And noticing this flow of air and movement, so vital in the body as you move up through the lungs, the nose, these elements, all earth, water, fire, and air, connect you to the essence of being on this earth. And this is your home. You belong here. So welcome home. Your home, always. And then as you feel ready, bringing your awareness back, opening your eyes if they're closed, and gently reconnecting with all these wonderful people gathered here today. Just take a second and feel into the body and see if there's any shifts or changes that have occurred for you. So I always love to connect to the earth. And I think it's a beautiful way to start mindfulness. And mindfulness is such a crucial part of mindful self-compassion. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take some time and talk about what that connection is between the two things. So let's see here, let me Set my timer. So let's explore this for a bit. The role of mindfulness and self-compassion. So a simple definition of mindfulness that you might like is mindfulness is a kind, gentle, present moment awareness that sees what is present and accepts it as it is in that moment. It's a being with. And we can anchor ourselves in mindfulness in any sense of the body: breathing, smelling, touching, tasting, hearing, seeing, whatever is the most effective for you and the most comforting, most accessible. Compassion brings into mindfulness an element of something very important, which is kindness. And it warms up our awareness. And that warming up our awareness gives us a very special opportunity, and that opportunity is to open the door to reducing suffering. Just that very act of kindness for ourselves during mindfulness brings that on. And it's a lovely and beautiful gift to yourself. Mindfulness and self-compassion are integral. They absolutely exist together. When they're in full bloom, they both are fully available. And yet, at the same time, they each offer us different specific benefits at different points in our practice. And we can choose where skillfully to be more effective in using either one. The key role of mindfulness and self-compassion, truly, for me, is the ability to see and know that I'm suffering, or I'm challenged, or that I'm struggling with something, or even that I'm hurt. So many times these things exist within us, and yet we don't stop and we don't see that that's the case. Sometimes this is referred to as taking the U-turn. Another way of saying that is just imagine stepping out in front of yourself and looking back. And as an observer, seeing what's happening, being able to look and say, I see challenges. I see struggling. I see hurt. And to acknowledge that. That simple act of mindfulness starts a process. When we're able to realize the nature of our current experience, this helps us move from being overwhelmed frequently by current thoughts or stories or emotions that come up and acknowledge our experience as it is. There's a real tendency for many people to over-identify with thoughts and with personal stories. And mindfulness helps us to move away from this way that we see this as my thoughts, my stories, my emotions, and shift to the idea that they are the thoughts that are present, the stories that are present, the emotions that are present. And this might sound like a subtle change, but it can be really powerful in helping you achieve a shift that changes the relationship we have to each moment in each experience. And that can be the basis for really opening the door for self-compassion to just blossom on its own and arise. So when we can stabilize awareness in a present moment, we can anchor. Lots of ways to do that. Very popular one, of course, is breath. Sometimes it's our feet. Sometimes it's sounds. And when we do that, there's a sense of a cooling down of an experience, of not being quite so emotionally overwhelmed. That's a real gift. One of my favorite descriptions is comparing it to surfing. And if you think of mindfulness as being on a surfboard, and if you've ever watched a surfer on a surfboard, they always look very calm, yet focused. They're very attentive to the present moment because that's what keeps them on the board. And if you see that board is riding an experience, an emotion, thoughts, stories, whatever is occurring, and you think of yourself on that board of mindfulness, you're adjusting yourself, you're adjusting, you're not falling in and drowning in the experience, and you're not ignoring the experience at all either. What you're doing is you're being in skillful contact with the moment, adjusting as you need. And an interesting thing starts to happen. When you're maintaining this surfing stance, you're able to see the experience more clearly and you're able to understand the experience. And when that happens, there's a sense of insight that can grow. And that sense of insight um, in that present moment automatically brings self-compassion forward. We can also notice where we hold difficult experiences in the body. And when we do that, rather than have a relationship of a lack of understanding or listening to the body, we really tune into the body and we let the body tell us what its experience actually is. And we can learn from that. And that comes with a sense of loving awareness of the experience of the body. The body has information for us. And the more aware we are of the body, the more able we are to receive it and to work with it. So when we have more insight into the moment, our wisdom can arise. And when our wisdom arises, we can see if we need to choose a compassionate action. And we'll make a more balanced choice because our judgment will be more balanced. Some of the key points to consider and to carry with you are when we skillfully practice mindfulness and self-compassion, that mindfulness is a loving awareness of the experience itself. Self-compassion adds something to that. When it adds the kindness, then self-compassion is a loving awareness of the experiencer, of you. So you're aware of the experience and you're aware of the effect of the experience. Mindfulness asks, what am I experiencing right now? Well, self-compassion asks, what do I need right now? In fact, over time, what I've come to realize is that that is the quintessential question of mindful self-compassion, which is, what do I need right now? And this is the question that I keep coming back to over and over again in my mindful self-compassion practice. What is it that I need right now? And just listening for the answer. Mindfulness says, feel your suffering with a spacious awareness. And Kristin did such an amazing job of that in the last hour. It's just beautifully illustrated how that works. Self-compassion says, in addition, be kind to yourself when you're suffering. So many of us, it seems, grew up to learn that being kind to our suffering was something weak or something that wouldn't be helpful, and yet it's very empowering. Mindfulness helps us regulate emotions through the attention to the emotion. Self-compassion helps us regulate emotions through affiliation. So that being kind to yourself when you're suffering is like, I know you. I know that experience. I know that feeling. I know you. Ah, there you are again. It's almost like a friend. Befriending these experiences and feelings helps us be with them in a very different way and changes our experience. So mindfulness can be seen as being calming. And self-compassion then adds a warmth to that. So I offer all this to you in light of the central paradox that we have in mindful self-compassion, which is when we struggle, we give ourselves compassion not to feel better because we feel bad. I'll say that one more time. It's always worth repeating. When we struggle, we give ourselves compassion not to feel better, but because we feel bad. That act alone changes us and changes our experience. Being there, showing up for yourself, just as you would for a friend, just because there is pain their struggle. So in closing this part, before we go on to meditation, these are both intentional practices, mindfulness and self-compassion. And what does intention actually mean? Well, I remember when I learned to ride a bike, that I learned that wherever I looked was where I was going to go. And that's intention. It's like setting a GPS. You set your GPS toward kindness, toward mindfulness, toward self-compassion. That's where you'll head. So that intention is just that, setting that direction and staying with that. So I'm going to invite you now into a practice. And then at the end of that, I'll close with a poem for you that I think summarizes a lot of the experience of mindfulness and self-compassion. So I like to, this is one of our core meditations adapted in some ways, special ways that I like to do it. One of my mindfulness teachers one time was offering this, and she described it. She said, "We're going to love up on the breath." And I just love that because I think it just has so much meaning. And, one of the things about the breath is that, especially after having studied for a long time, so many times we anchor to the breath, and it can get to be a little tedious because it's the thing we have to keep coming back to. And it's so much more than that. It's so wonderful, and we can forget that. So, so I'm going to invite you into that space. We'll sit for about 20 minutes or so. And then I'll give you a heads up and ring bells at the end, and then offer a poem for you. So as we go into this, the invitation is to remain in choice. And what I mean by that is along the way, there may be times when my voice gets in the way, and you're welcome to drop below the voice and just let it be sound, and to meditate that way. And if that's taking care of yourself, then I totally support that choice. Also, if I refer to focusing on a particular part of the body or an experience, feel free to choose another part of the body or just a soft focus on the body in general if you'd like. I guarantee you the results will be equally as good. And if it's a supported choice for you, then that's just exactly the right one. Same with breath. If there's an area of breath to focus in that's suggested, or and you have another place that works better for you, then please choose that. You'll get to the same place beautifully. Okay. So first of all, just return to the body. Does anything need to be adjusted? You can stand up, sit, lay down, or even gently walk as we do this. It's all good. Part of self-compassion is taking care of yourself. So in this moment, just do what you need. If there's anything that's impinging, just be comfortable. The proximate cause of mindfulness is relaxation. So inviting that in. If you'd like to sit with your eyes closed, then inviting you to close your eyes now. If you'd like to sit with your eyes open, then just a gentle focus downward would be very effective. Inviting you into this space in this moment, welcoming you. Welcoming this moment. Welcoming this experience in this retreat today. Welcoming yourself. Welcoming yourself to the experience. Welcoming air, breath, and welcoming a sense of kindness and gentleness. and inviting mindfulness front and center, an intentional focus on this present moment. And as soon as we focus on this present moment, so often what happens is the past and the future intervene. And as the past intervenes with thoughts of reliving, rereading, reworking things that have happened, hoping for a different outcome, we can just see those things as a book. And the invitation is to just gently place that book on the shelf, just for now, just for this moment. It'll be there when we're done, but just for now, let it be there. And when the future intervenes in our present moment focus, that's all that speculation about what hasn't even been written yet. It's actually an empty book. And we can take that book and we can leave it on the shelf too. Just for now, it'll be there. And letting these books rest on the shelf. In this present moment, there's no need for the past or the future. There's only the need for now. And to assist us in being in this moment, including the body in our awareness, the body in its unique gift of always living in this moment. The body doesn't even know how to live in the past or the future. It's simply not capable. Let it guide the way for you. Gentleness and kindness to this body, your constant companion. And then beginning to find the breath in the body where you experience it most clearly. This might be the nose, the upper lip, the throat, the lungs. Perhaps for you, breathing is a whole body experience. Just choosing where it's clearest for you, easiest to access, easiest to follow, and inviting a light, gentle focus. It's like the sensation of fog resting on a hillside. It's a gentle being with a sense of knowing without needing to change a thing. The body knows how to breathe. This is simply the opportunity for you to experience it. And as you gently sit with your breath, you may notice that thinking happens. and stories arise. And each one of these things travels through. It's a little bit like sitting on a bench in a train station. And each one of these thoughts and stories is a train. And you sit on the bench in the train station, being with your breath. And you see these trains come in and go. And you realize that you don't have to get on any of them. You can simply be there and watch. Thoughts and stories rise. They stay for a moment and then they leave. You don't have to jump on board. You can stay on the bench, being with breath. If you'd like to be a bit more intimate with the breath and noting very gently the inflow of breath and the outflow, noting each lightly. Know where to go, nothing to do, know when you need to be. Just you and breath. You might also notice that each breath is different from the one that comes before it and the one that comes after, with no two being alike. Just noticing the length, not in the sense of measuring it, but just experiencing it. Each unique, each different. There's just you and breath. We breathe so many times in an hour, a day, a lifetime. So few breaths are considered and observed. And yet, under the radar, there is this breath. Each breath bringing in life-giving oxygen, nurturing, feeding you, reaching out to every cell in the body, offering it care. And as this occurs, each cell releases what it no longer needs. And this all passes out as you release the out breath. And what you no longer need, the trees, the plants, the planet does. And it takes it in. And then it offers back more oxygen. So in each of these unobserved moments of breath, there's actually a circle of life, of give and take, of support. You, the planet, you're inseparable. Supporting and guiding. And the invitation is to rest in the breath, appreciating its life-giving, its consistency, always there, always ready for you. Even when you're completely unaware. And if it feels right for you, just resting in the breath. And as you rest in this breath, as thoughts come, stories come, distractions, perhaps seeing that these things rise, they stay for a moment and then they leave. And yet the breath is always there, right there to support you and to anchor you. The invitation is to let go. Let go of a thought, a story, and watch it simply float away. And as you return to being with the breath, Perhaps seeing it as a refuge, maybe a place of calmness, of stillness. And even now, as awareness might drift away, when you take note of that, that's a moment of true mindfulness, of knowing experience, and just smiling at that, and kindly and gently inviting awareness to lightly rest once again on the breath, this life-giving breath. And in these last moments, I'll offer you this poem. This poem by Sapphire Rose, inviting you to just continue to breathe and see what arises as you listen. These are excerpts from the poem. She let go. Without a thought or a word, she let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right reasons, wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving on. She let go of all the planning and all the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her daytimer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her horoscope. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There were no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what was, and it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. So, in just a moment, you'll hear the sound of the bell. And inviting you to open your eyes. Give yourself a compassionate stretch. If you have a cat or a dog handy, they'll teach you this. They know how. So just, and welcome back. Once again, that was She Let Go by Sapphire Rose, and it's a longer poem, and it's really beautiful, and I encourage you to look that up if you'd like. So thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Sophia. Thank you so much for the honor of being with you this morning and leading you and offering you these experiences about mindfulness and self-compassion. I hope they're supportive and helpful to you as you enter a new year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, James. That was truly, truly beautiful. Really helping us to connect with our body, our breath, and then just reminding us, the gentle ways that we can befriend ourselves. Thank you so much. And that poem you ended with, I was going to ask if you could share it in the chat box, but looks like Sophia beat you to it.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Obviously, there are other fans. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Really love to have you here today. And thank you everyone for being here for James's lovely meditation. If you are inspired or feel grateful and you would like to make a donation, since the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion is a nonprofit organization, I'm just going to put in the chat box a way that you can donate. This retreat is run by us volunteers. So, feel free if you'd like to donate. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and go into a little break. So we will take a 10-minute break right now. So please feel free to take care of your bodies, or just, continue sitting here in loving silence. And then after that, we will have the amazing, wonderful Patricia Isis. To see you at the top of the hour. So unmute that. All right. So if you can hear my voice coming back into our virtual space, coming back to our last session for the day, and I do apologize, my face looks an extra glow. I've got my window open so that I can also enjoy the trees and squirrels outside on my yard, but that means that there's an overshadow here. It's a beautiful day here in Sugar Land, Texas. Just a perfect amount of cool breeze and warm sun. So I'd like to get started now with the last hour of our renewal retreat. And with that, I want to also once again welcome those that have just arrived, and for those of you that have been here for the entire retreat, lovely that you've been sitting here with us, sitting here in one space as a global community. Those of you, once again, that don't know me, I'm Laila Narsi. I'm one of the two coordinators for CMSC Circles of Practice public offering, and just really lovely to sit with you as we close out the year. And so our last session leader is Dr. Patricia Isis. And Dr. Isis is a certified mindful self-compassion teacher. She's also a licensed mental health counselor in Florida, a registered board certified art therapist. Amazing. And credentialed supervisor for art therapists and mental health counseling interns. Dr. Isis has been practicing art therapy and mental health counseling for over 40 years. She is also an incredibly active leader in Circles of Practice public offerings since we've started. And really appreciate, Patricia, all the dedication that you've done for Circles of Practice. So really want to say that out loud. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to Patricia here. And let me go ahead and pin you as well, Patricia. All right. Yeah, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laila. And thank you so much, Kristin, James. It is such a privilege to be in the company of such amazing facilitation and vision. I also want to thank the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion for making this possible, and certainly Chris and Kristin for developing this amazing work that has brought me and so many others such valuable resources to alleviate suffering and cultivate a tenderness that we all long for. And that's available to us at any moment simply by practicing. So it is an incredible privilege to be here, as it is to be a facilitator in the Circle of Practice. And I appreciate you all showing up. Let's take a moment and pause here so that you can appreciate that you are with us, that we are here together in this moment, holding each other. That each and every one of you matter, that you're all welcome to be here. And thanks to those beautiful practices led by Kristin and James and Laila, those of you that have been here from the beginning of this retreat, to those of you that have just joined us, big bow. as we continue together in our own ways to practice these opportunities for renewal, for accessing the part of ourselves that brought us here to begin with, that compassionate voice that deserves more amplification, that wants the best for us always. And so we'll begin with a soft landing practice that will help us arrive and welcome ourselves as we are, fully, deeply, richly, our whole selves, with our whole hearts. And then we'll have a little time for some information about pausing, about accessing the yin and the yang of mindful self-compassion, and readying ourselves for what is most important in our lives right now, for relating to our heart, which will never lie to us. So the invitation, and everything here is an invitation. If I offer anything that feels uncomfortable or challenging in any way, please take care of yourself, back off. This practice is about you being your own best teacher. In any given moment, you know what you need best. And so the invitation is first to arrange yourself, if you're so inclined, in a posture that allows you to feel comfortable first, whatever that means for your magnificent body that's been with you all your life right now, whatever movement or stretching or shifting is needed. Perhaps your feet are flat on the floor, as many of us have discovered this resource called Soles of the Feet for grounding. You may notice you need to lean back or lay down or stand up or even move. Go there for this practice of arrival, of showing up. Similarly, eyes can be opened if that feels safer, or closed. Hands can be palms down, palms up, holding each other, or perhaps on your heart or another supportive region of the body, if that feels right. And we often begin this practice of soft landing by noticing that we're breathing. And I invite you to notice perhaps the pause as your lungs are full. And the pause after they're empty. Of course, we expect the mind to wander because that's its job. And whenever we notice its roving ways, we certainly have an opportunity when we notice to bring it back to whatever anchor we choose, whether it's our breath or a certain sense that is easiest for us to access. Perhaps you're more of a visual learner. And so you may notice textures, colors, images that are comforting, that remind you of your aliveness, of your humanness, of your preciousness, of this moment and its tenderness. or you're auditory primarily in your learning. So you may notice sounds inside and outside your body, and the spaces or the pauses between the sounds, between the images. Perhaps you're more of a kinesthetic learner, and it's less effort for you to feel your way into this moment tenderly, compassionately, authentically, noticing sensations, temperatures, emotions, whatever touches you here and now. And the pauses between those experiences. You might need to move in a rocking motion, or just a part of your body to remind you that you're alive, that you matter, that you're here as you are. And that in itself is remarkable. You may appreciate smelling and tasting your way into this moment, noticing if there's a remnant on your tongue left over from a beverage or some nourishment you've taken in recently. Or perhaps aromas in your setting. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, no matter. And the pauses between these experiences. Opening and allowing the entire landscape of your perspective, your way, your style, your truth of this breath, this life, this body, this moment, here and now, as you are. And I invite you to welcome all of you, all the parts, all the pauses, all the senses, the entire landscape inside and outside, the same way you welcome anyone you love who's coming to visit, to connect with you. That level of hospitality for yourself here and now, in word and image, in feeling, taste, smell, sound, whatever. And as we begin to transition, only if you feel ready, to a little informal practice together, I'd like to read a poem by Talia Hunter called "And If We Are to Shine." And if we are to shine, may we shine as the stars do, which glow brightly in the darkness and illuminate the beauty of all that surrounds us and surrounds them. And if we are to heal, may we heal as the forests do, which regenerate following the harshest of fires and the coldest of winters. And if we are to grow, may we grow as the plants do, slowly, with stability, directed toward the light. And if we are to let go, may we let go as the trees do, shedding and releasing what is old in order to make way for the new year, the new moment. And if we are to move forward, may we flow freely as the rivers do, which surrender to their paths gently, without resistance. And if we are to transform, may we transform as the moon does, which continues to shine in all its phases, knowing that it is no less beautiful when it isn't perfect or whole. And if we are to live, may we live as those before us did, bravely, boldly, passionately, and purposefully. And may we never lose touch with the dreams that lie dormant within us, waiting to be expressed and shared with the world. And so I invite you, if you're so inclined, perhaps to open your eyes if they're closed. Check in with your body. It's always there for you. See if you need a stretch, a yawn, a sigh. A twist. A moment to pause. Tara Brach, in her book, Radical Acceptance, wrote so beautifully about the sacred pause. It's inherent in our practices of self-compassion, as it requires us to stop. S-T-O-P, stop. The S is exactly that pausing, even for half a second. The T is taking a breath, taking a look. The O is observing. What is my experience here and now, in this body, in this life? And once I know that, then I can ask the mindful self-compassion question. With this experience, particularly if it's challenging, what do I need most? What's the next most important thing? And our heart will provide us, our gut will provide us, our body will bring us that clearing in the denseness of our lives where we're so busy doing, so busy with distractions. And as Kristin Neff so graciously and generously offered us the three components of the yin of mindful self-compassion, as she spoke about earlier, which is really loving the kindness piece rather than self-judgment, the presence piece, which is mindfulness versus over-identification, which James also spoke about, knowing the truth of our present moment with full acceptance, loving presence that's connected, that common humanity that we all have all the time. And that's half of our practice of self-compassion. The yang, which Kristin wrote so beautifully about in Fierce Self-Compassion, her latest book, is really compassion in action to the world. It's motivating ourselves to take charge, to protect ourselves, and to provide for ourselves in balance with loving, connected presence. And to do this, we cultivate courage, bravery, encouraging ourselves first, the same way we encourage others who are struggling, who we love naturally, in our own ways. And the sacred pause offers us that opportunity, that portal to that infinite self that Kristin led us to access earlier, that we can bring to ourselves 24/7 simply by remembering to pause. And so as we renew, reflect, return over and over to the present moment, to a milestone of a new year, an ending and another beginning, just like every breath offers, I invite you to notice how you pause your resources for bringing this valuable space into your body, into your life, because there's power in dropping in bringing a pause with the breath, with the senses, before we respond or react. And this particular year has been one of my most challenging. I've been living with a very challenging health experience that came on randomly around Thanksgiving last year. And I ended up giving my condition a name so that I could relate to her. I named her Gertrude. And once I did that, I found that I could have a relationship that afforded me empowerment and choice and freedom. And I've learned a great deal as I've made peace and have been very fortunate with modern medicine, with this practice, with so much support and connection and loving kindness. And I want to offer us the living a fulfilling life practice that Kristin modified in her Fierce Compassion book. And it's adapted from our Discovering Core Values practice in the Mindful Self-Compassion curriculum. And so again, I invite you to arrange your body in a way that allows you a sense of comfort, whatever that means first, and yet awareness, so that you have that balancing act. And this practice is also taken from and adapted from Stephen Hayes' work with acceptance and commitment therapy and his colleagues. We're going to begin with a pause. Notice what you notice as I invite you to imagine yourself many years in the future, hopefully many years, as many as you can imagine, and that you're sitting in a gorgeous setting that only you can create for yourself. A garden tailored to meet all your needs as you contemplate your wild and precious life. And as you look back at the time between now and then, you can feel a deep sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, and contentment. Notice that feeling. How do you have that in image, in sound, in touch, smell, taste? Even though life certainly has not been easy, you have managed with your resilience and your strengths to stay true to yourself and have spent as much time at this point of bringing joy to yourself, your way. What were the deep needs you fulfilled? What were the values that you've honored that were so satisfying? I know for me, connection is a deep need to myself, to others, to the universe, that we all are here for a reason. We all belong, we all matter. What matters to you the most? Creativity, adventure, energy, health, relationships, community service, nature, so many possibilities. You'll know because your heart will tell you when it's ready and you're ready. And to what extent are you currently meeting your needs for happiness? Is your life out of balance in any way? That's quite common, being human and imperfect. Are we spending an inordinate amount of time people-pleasing, meeting others' needs, because that's just our habit? Or are we too busy tending to so many other things on our to-do list that we neglect ourselves? If anything comes up, feel free to write it down, note it somewhere, doodle it, feel it, hold it in your capacity for awareness, for infinite awareness and wisdom. And of course, we all have obstacles that prevent us from meeting our needs and others. And some of them might be external, might be related to time, money, health, dynamics in our families and our relationships, so many reasons. And you might notice those and honor them with compassion toward yourself first, and then everyone else, if you're so inclined. And there also are often internal obstacles that get in the way of our ability to meet our own needs and others. Maybe we just don't think we deserve to meet our own needs. That's pretty popular in our culture. Or maybe we just have decided it's too selfish or self-indulgent. We just feel guilty about it. Very common. Just drop in and reflect, if you like, if that feels right, on these obstacles. Inside or outside. And at the same time, notice the deep yearning, the deep human desire within all of us to be happy, to live our lives fully, richly, deeply. No matter the obstacles, the challenges, the needs that remain unfulfilled. And here in this retreat, what an opportunity to practice together, knowing we're so connected all the time to each other, that we're all in this path, on this path of aliveness, of cultivating peace inside and outside ourselves. How do you think yin and yang, loving, connected presence, and fierce action in the world can help you find your way to your deepest desires, to even overcoming some of these obstacles? To help us feel safe, confident enough to take new actions and risk disapproval, letting go of things that no longer serve us, opening our hearts and our minds to what actually is, like it or not, with loving kindness. Creating a friendly attitude, hospitable and welcoming to whatever we encounter here and now. What is that brings you the most satisfaction here and now in your life, in your body. And we know that some of the obstacles we encounter are insurmountable for many reasons. Part of our humanness, of our frailty, of our vulnerability, of the fact that everything is temporary. And that we can't have everything exactly the way we want it to be. And if we get out of the way, or even if we don't, the art makes itself. The wisdom that we inhabit with this pause, in this moment, in this body, this infinite tenderness that we all share, can bring us comfort despite the enormous challenges inside and outside ourselves that we encounter and are encountering moment to moment, along with the joys, the surprises, the love. As Mary Oliver says in her poem, Instructions for Life, pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Checking in and noticing what you notice. Telling yourself about this. Noticing sensations in your body, warmth, coolness, openness, heaviness. Grounding yourself in whatever way is most effortless. Feet on the floor, hand on the heart. Breath, image. Color. Song, chant, prayer. Your anchor for coming back every time we wander away. Your way, your style, your truth. And finally, the invitation is to balance the yin with the yang, the energy of fierce and tender self-compassion together. Accepting our present moment experience just as it is. And we can also cultivate skillful actions to change, to soften, and to alter our circumstances in our rhythm, in our way, as we're ready, at the same time. So consider any creative ways. Everybody here is an artist. And just in the way that you compose your life, your perception, your landscape, that's your art. How do you want to make the invisible visible? If you love nature, spend more time there. If your longing is for more connection with yourself, make space for that. Or to cultivate closer relationships with others. It doesn't have to be large and enormous. Small and slow are just as valuable. Feel free to take notes, doodle, imagine, notice in your way what comes up, what is here for you, for us. And if you're so inclined, you're welcome to begin the transition to our closing ritual, unless you'd like to continue the practice. And this is available to all of us. All of these practices, 24/7 in our daily lives. Anytime we wish to remember to pause and drop in and bring up what we cherish most, what is most precious in our humanness, in our aliveness, in our fulfillment of the ordinary and extraordinary. Simply by being you. And so as we transition, if you wish, I'd like to share a little pause poem by Rachel Marie Martin. There is power in space, in a breath, in a pause. Before you respond, you get to choose hate or love, anger or empathy, frustration or opportunity, lonely or together, irritation or understanding. Be kind. Pause. And so I invite you to consider how you might integrate pausing, checking in, remembering the resources that illuminate your life, your landscape. And I offer you an opportunity in the chat room, perhaps, to share with us what you notice, what you're going to bring with you, your resources for the next moment, for the next breath, for the next year and years to come. What's staying with you? What can you hold in your heart with light effort as the gift that keeps on giving for yourself first and then everyone else? The power and opportunity to grow the garden of my choice, kindness, generosity, blessings, checking in with my senses, enjoying my own company, connection and creativity with bravery and tenderness inside and outside. Remembering to pause and be kinder, living from the inside and outside, embracing the path of aliveness, play, and beauty, the invitation to act on my own behalf, awareness of choice, small and slow steps, just as valuable. Kindness is a choice. Dropping into the moment, yin and yang power, remembering I don't need to only serve everyone else's needs. Understanding and sharing that other people know grief as deep as mine. Being curious about the images that arise. It's okay to clean my house. Remembering to listen to what I cherish most. Taking in joy like a breath that fills me up with loving connection to myself and others. Pausing to remember my innate goodness. Peace from within my source. Pause to listen to my heart. Creating for fun, for joy, not productivity without attachment to the outcome. Courage to be myself and stop neglecting myself. Personal agency. Smile. Can you feel the love? We couldn't have it without all of you. Connect with my inner joy. We're all creative beings. That joy and peace reside within. Pause to listen, feeling inner voice and self. Trusting my heart. Becoming my own loving parent. This is our community poem that we bring to this moment. thank yourselves over and over for sharing your practice, your experience, your wisdom, mostly your incredible presence with us. Big bow to all of you. This is such a divine presence that we share, that we can bring first in and then share generously outwardly. Big bow, big thank you, all of you. As I send the mic back to beloved Laila.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone here, for really making this retreat extra special. Whether you've just attended the retreat or you also attend Circles of Practice public offering, I really want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your loving presence. Thank you for making this a beautiful community. It is only a beautiful community because of everyone here. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Patricia, for really leading us in a beautiful practice, reminding us, to reconnect with this compassionate voice, reminding us to also take a pause as we welcome in the new year. Yeah. Patricia, as I mentioned, teaches Circles of Practice public offering, as well as I do. So would love for you to join us if you haven't joined us already. I put this earlier in the chat box, but I'm going to put it in again, where you can sign up. Patricia, are you going to be teaching any days coming up?
Yes, I'll be teaching on Wednesday mornings, starting the middle of January. I'm switching. I was always
wonderful.
Tuesday, but I'm back on Wednesdays now, starting at a new time, new day. Hope to see whoever join me. Thank you.
So let me put that in the chat box as well. So Patricia teaches Wednesdays. Is that 7 a.m. Pacific?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. And then I will be teaching on New Year's Day at 7 a.m. Pacific, if you're able to join. Also, once again, if you feel, moved to make a donation to CMSC, there's a link here. We will also be providing a recording of today's retreat because there were so many people that have signed up, but not enough space. So we will provide the recording very soon so that you can watch it, share with anyone else. I want to thank CMSC for giving us this platform so that teachers like Patricia and I and everyone else can connect with you. Wishing everyone a very happy new year. So what I'd like to do is ask you one last thing. If you would go to the gallery function of your Zoom. So if you're open to having your video on, you can, or you can leave your video off. But if you go to the gallery function and let's just take a moment and just look at the lovely more than 200 faces that are here. And let's just quietly for a few seconds, just give some compassion to all the faces and names that are here, whether we know them or not. Knowing that just like each of us, they are too human. They are too worthy of compassion. Thank you, everyone. So with that, I'd like to welcome anyone and everyone to unmute and to say goodbye to this retreat in your own way, in your own language. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Be
Thank you so
peaceful
much.
Well,
2024.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you much, everyone.
Bye.